Divine greetings, ones and zeros, zeros and ones, boys and girls that are now men and women, kings and queens, gods and goddesses, spiritual beings of this divine matrix. My name is Clay, and welcome to this live episode. And tonight, this live, I'm going to speak on what I've been working on in this transmuting moon for this Capricorn full moon. And I'm going to jump right into it, as the title says, which I'm doing the title for the first time because I just found out I can change the title. And that title is saying harmonizing, transmuting to harmony, the fear of intimacy. And what has been coming up for me, or a part of what has been coming up for me this full moon, is the fear of intimacy, particularly as it relates to this specific topic. This is how I saw it coming through today. Today, as I practice, is my sacral day. The tomorrow will be, actually no, today is the solar plexus. Today is the 20. Anyways, the full moon, which I think is in 2 days, is the heart day. So, being that the full moon is in heart day and it's in two days, today would be the sacral day, as it relates to the moon cycle. And as I was practice emotional freedom, practicing having pleasure in life. And this is how it is today. I'm doing this live because I am practicing that pleasure point, and spirit is saying, my spirit is saying, let's do a live based on the revelations that I've had today. And in doing that live, it helps my mental capacity. So now, talking about that mental capacity, I'm going to reference how it is, or who it is that I am. As I said earlier, my name is Clay, and this particular live, I'm speaking on how it is that I've gotten through schizophrenia, and I'm going through the soul work needed to keep my mind free of schizophrenic energy. So one of those things that I have in my background, or in my foreground, is that I have a narcissistic mother, not just a narcissistic mother, a covert narcissistic mother. So one of the things that I've been working on this full moon cycle is, as I was saying before, intimacy with self. And as I work with intimacy with self, one of the things I recognize today is that my mother is the predator in the relationship with my father. Typically, the men are usually seen as the predator and women seen as the prey. In this understanding, or in my revelation, in my understanding, I'm seeing that my mother was the predator, and still is in the relationship. They're no longer in a relationship, however, the type of relationship that they have, my mother maintains being the predator. So in that sense, in recognizing that my mother was a predator, it caused a feeling of collapse in my solar plexus. And as it caused a feeling of collapse in my solar plexus, I recognized that I was feeling shame in my solar plexus. And in the interaction with my partner, I saw that I was also feeling guilt. And that guilt made me become defensive when my partner was the one who pointed out that my mother was being predatory in the relationship. So, and my partner, who is the mother of my children, is very good at her spiritual work, very good at seeing the soul's condition, seeing the soul in a certain light, right? Now, as she pointed out that my mother was the predator and my father was the prey, it did something to my solar plexus. It made me feel challenged. Not only challenged, it made me feel weak in my solar plexus. It made me feel as if I was not man enough for my partner, because as I recognized that I was not being man enough for my partner, I started to lose my mind in a sense, because I've recovered my seeing mind, and in encountering those feelings, I felt my solar plexus sink. I felt my identity begin to shrink. And then I started feeling threatened by my partner. I started feeling as if my partner was more of a man than I was. So now I sat with that. After having a conversation with my partner, I sat with that and was doing some soul work. And in doing that soul work, I recognized that my mother was looking at me as a meal ticket. My mother was looking at me as a meal ticket. Now, as she was looking at me as a meal ticket, for her safety, she as she was looking at me as a meal ticket, she was also projecting how she was looking at my father. You know, as I was saying before, she's being the predator, and in her being the predator, that means that every one of us, she has three children. I said four because she had an abortion also. Now, in having those three children, I'm seeing that she had those three children not in a benevolent way, not out of love. And let me say greetings to all the ones in the chat. If you have any questions regarding spirituality, regarding soul work, please put it in the chat, and I'm welcoming good-hearted questions, good-hearted comments, right? Now, my mother was looking at me and my father, and therefore the legacy of my father, which is the seedlings of my father, as a meal ticket. Now, one of the big things is that at 4 years old, my father abandoned us. He left. I'm a Jamaican. I'm now living in Florida. When I was small, when I was younger, my father left us at 4 years old, and he abandoned us, me, my mother, my brother, and my sister. He abandoned us and went to America, right? Needless to say, as he abandoned us, one of the things that he did help with was financing the house that we were living. And I was having a problem in seeing that he had abandoned the family, because he was providing some financial support for the house that we were living. Give thanks for the hearts, give thanks for the celebration, give thanks for the emojis. No, as he was helping with the finances for the house, one of the things I was stuck on is that he was entitled to having some say in the house. And I realized today that he has no say in the house, because he abandoned the family, and in abandoning the family, he actually abandoned his legacy in the care of the predator, being my mother. Right now, I'm seeing clearly that that is a violation of integrity, and he has no entitlement to that house. So now, getting through that process took some work. I saw where the mind, the brain, the intellect of the brain, what they call the egoic self, my egoic self, which is the demonic self, was that part of me that is, they say, is protecting yourself. It's really protecting yourself. I'm looking at that egoic self that provided me with the narrative that I have a loving mother, not as a protector. That egoic self that provided me with the narrative that I have a loving mother is actually the deceiver. It's the false self. And while I understand the narrative that is there to greetings, Divine Energy Studio. Thank you for being here. As I was saying, the demonic self, the false self, wanted me to believe that my mother was a loving mother. And today I saw clearly that she was not a loving mother. She's a predatory mother, right? Which means that she doesn't have her children to care and nurture them. She has her children to provide security for her, right? Okay, let me take a moment to breathe right here. Okay, so my demonic self, the demonic self that is there, as this modern society puts it, to protect you, the egoic self. It says the egoic self, this modern society, modern psychology says that the egoic self is there to protect you. And I am seeing clearly that that egoic self is there not to protect you. That egoic self is there to lie to you and deceive you into thinking that it is protecting you so it can have a life of its own. It can have a life being demonic and it can go undetected. So today I detected that egoic self, that false self, and I have made a vow to no longer be that false self, because that false self is the self that led me into a schizophrenic episode. In truth, it is that false self that had the schizophrenic episode where I fragmented into a billion pieces, so to speak. And as I fragmented into those pieces, I am now putting the self back together. In having put the self back together, I see my mother for who she is on another level once again today. The predator. In seeing her as a predator, I see how much the family has suffered for her predatory ways. And I see how I have suffered in allowing her to deceive me into deceiving myself, in being a predator unto myself and to other beings that I have come in contact with. These other beings that I have come in contact with, I sincerely apologize for anyone who may be in tune with this live, and I send it out in the energy for that light to penetrate their system as an apology. of me being a predator to myself, and as a result, projecting my predatory ways onto them. The sacral chakra is responsible for the guilt and pleasure energy wheel. And the solar plexus chakra is responsible for the will, personal will, and divine will. Or I should say, you know what? I'm going to say divine will. It's responsible for divine will and shame. When personal will is used, it is a shameful thing. And that is what the false self uses to perform actions. It uses personal will. When you're in your divine will, you do not behave shamefully. You do not act in this drama of life shamefully. Now, as I look at let me take a breath. As I look at the relationship there with guilt and shame, and as I said before, because of the wounds that I was carrying regarding intimacy and not being intimate with myself, rather being intimate with the wounds that I was carrying, I could not see that my mother was behaving predatory to my father and to the family. And I'm seeing how guilt is a mechanism that takes you out of yourself. And as guilt is the mechanism that takes you out of self, your personal will or shame is the mechanism that keeps you out of self. And the false self that is using these mechanisms will call it protection. And I'm noting here that I'm not blaming these mechanisms, because these mechanisms belong to me, and they began at the inception of time for humanity, for humans. And it is I who allowed others to put these mechanisms onto me as I received those mechanisms of guilt and shame and lies and so on to lead me out of myself. So I'm not putting the blame on anyone. I'm not putting the fault on anyone except myself. Now, as I was saying, guilt takes you out of self, and shame, personal will, keeps you out of self. And right now I'm experiencing, let me take a breath here again. Right now I'm experiencing pleasure as I am within myself. And that is the sacral chakra. In its openness. In its openness, it allows pleasure. So pleasure keeps me within myself. And divine will affirms that pleasure and reinforces me to be within myself. So that is the sacral and solar plexus working together. And as they work together, the sacral chakra also represents justice. The solar plexus represents harmony, and the heart represents balance. So as the sacral chakra and the solar plexus chakra works together, justice harmonizes a balance in the heart. So that is what I am transmuting. That is what I have transmuted today, leading up to this Capricorn full moon. And as I wax up to this Capricorn full moon, that is what I am trusting in my soul, trusting to my soul to keep in my soul. And as I keep that in my soul, I see wherein it is going to be a pleasureful experience in this earth, based on me doing soul work, based on me doing my soul work, and having allowed my spirit to imbue me, to come into my soul and take hold of my soul with divine will. And I am taking the time to breathe intentionally here to transmute the words that I am saying into my physical body. And as I am transmuting them into my physical body, I'm actually upgrading, changing my carbon DNA into crystalline DNA. And I'm reminded at this point to reinforce with my soul beings that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And as we are spiritual beings having a human experience, we go through ascensions. And as we transcend the physical body, though it may be represented scientifically as us having carbon-based DNA, I'm reminded to remind myself and us here that we are crystalline-based. Some of us are crystalline-based in the 5D realm. The 5D realm, the realm of the love frequency. And as I'm transmuting these energies within my body to come within my physical body from my ethereal body, I'm reminded that we all have access to this capability as humans here on this earth. And I will reinforce that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And that is where I'm going to leave this live. And I thank all that came here to witness this live. And for anyone who sees it later on, I ask that if you so desire to leave a comment, and I will do my absolute best to respond to those comments, as I accept comments from the heart, concerning the heart, in growing the heart, in being the heart, in living in the heart, because we are here on earth to have a heartful experience. Ashe and amen.